Welcome to European Railway issue number 90, the DVD magazine for the continental enthusiast. In this programme, we travel to Austria for the first in a two-part feature looking at the main line between Passau in Germany and the junction town of Wels. It's off to southwest Paris next, as we study the everyday traction to be seen on RER Line C suburban services. Hungary is our next stop, where we witness passenger and freight activity in the west of the country, next to the border with Croatia. Passenger trains dominate in our next section, as we begin part one of a feature looking at the Nuremberg to Würzburg line. And finally, our tail lamp looks at two forms of traction in central France. Austria is the first country visited as we travel to the Passau to Wels main line. Located in the northwest of the country, close to the border with Germany, this is a very busy trunk route, which sees both Austrian and international freight and passenger traffic. The black line shows the section of route covered. In the first of two parts, we concentrate on the northern section, looking at a number of locations on our journey south. We begin in the north, at the small town of Wernstein, located some 8 kilometres to the south of Passau on the right bank of the River Inn, just inside the Austrian border. The map here shows our various filming locations. Heading south on the evening of the 29th of May 2019 is 1116264. The station was at this time undergoing modernisation, and as a result one of the tracks was out of use, requiring single line working. Above the empty Cartix can be seen Neuburg Castle, located in neighbouring Germany. A footbridge across the river here allows access between the two towns. Six minutes later, and it was the turn of DB Cargo's 185375 to pass our spot with northbound box wagons, forming train GM 48916, the 0926 from Kindberg to Sielce. Three Class 185s were in charge of the next train, numbers 381, 392 and 386. The train is the 1247 from Gratwin-Gratkorn to Spellen near Oberhausen in Germany. Our evening visit saw a train every 7 minutes or so. 193736 is a representative of one of the numerous private owner or leased locos that travel this route. This one is on SETG operated tank train number 49877 from Plattling in Germany to Ljubljana in Slovenia. Train 48931 from Spellen to Gratwin-Gratkorn was running around 6 hours early when we filmed it here, powered by 185397. There is generally an hourly stopping service which operates between Linz and Passau, with a more frequent service pattern during the peak periods. 4024053 passes, forming the 1850 service from Linz. Intercity services operate every 2 hours in each direction. This is set number 411072. With darkness beginning to fall, 185612 heads south. It is now 9 o'clock and an unidentified Cat train Class 193 heads north. Freight trains along this line are never-ending, with around 4 to 6 an hour during the morning and evening peak periods. 193219 is seen running south at just after 6 am with hoppers bound for Bratislava. Ten minutes later, and 185346 leads 1116103 on train EZ 45902, the 0106 from Vienna to Nuremberg. It was 30 minutes later when 193277 appeared through the early morning haze. The loco is on hire to TXL and is powering train 43944 from Vienna Fraudenauhafen to Wanne Eickel in Germany. lack of suitable photographic locations, together with high sound barriers installed adjacent to the tracks, means that the next best area for photographing the trains is around the station at Taufkirchen, some 15 kilometres to the south. This wasn't far away from our other two featured spots. The map here shows our main filming positions. Approaching the rain-soaked station is SNG's Class 2043 diesel number 010, which is a regular sight along this line, working a daily pickup freight between Newmarket Callum and Scharding and return. (193.892) heads the other way. The hourly local service along this line sees Class 1144 and 1142 electrics on push-pull stock formations, as well as the Class 4024 electric units, one of which we saw earlier. This is 1144-210, pausing with the 0613 from Amstetten to Passau. (1016030) is in charge of the 0527 Nuremberg to Vienna mixed freight. We keep our camera poised as we've detected the front headlights of 193855, which was at this time on hire to Austria's rail cargo carrier. (1116042) was the next to be seen, in charge of the 0235 from Győr to Ingolstadt, conveying car components. The line was built by the Imperial and Royal Privileged Empress Elizabeth Railway, being completed on the 1st of September 1861. It was known as the Wels-Passau Railway or the Passaubahn. It is around 83 kilometres long, linking Passau in Germany with the Westbahn main line at Wels. 193659 approaches the camera with a train of box wagons from Passau to Bratislava. Passengers await the arrival of the 934 from Passau to Neumarkt Callum, which is worked by 1144-210, returning on its booked diagram. (193-243) is in advertising livery as it passes with train 41151 from Rheinhausen in Germany to Budapest Soroksa container terminal. We head south now to our final two locations in part 1 of this feature. The first is at Antwersham, shown here on our map. We will then continue south to the station at Andorf. Heading north around the bend is 11-16-149 on train 45904, the 0442 from Vienna to Nuremberg. In the opposite direction we have 11-16-042 with the 0639 car parts train from Ingolstadt to Győr in Hungary. There are usually 3 of these trains to be seen each way per day. Arriving at Andorf is 11-44-123 on the 1049 from Passau to Linz. Just before departure, the train is passed by a Class 411 ICE working the 915 from Vienna to Frankfurt. Hungarian 47504 passes in the southbound direction with train 41931 from Karlsruhe to Sopron, conveying mainly Gartner intermodal units. Finally, heading north we have 11-44-285 on the 0655 service from Vienna to Passau. We will visit this line again in part 2 of this feature in a future edition of European Railway. In this section of the programme, we look at suburban and regional trains to the southwest of Paris. The Paris rail network is also known as the Île-de-France and has a number of its commuter lines labelled alphabetically from A to E. In this section we look at lines on the sea network to the west of Versailles, on the route to Plaisir and Rambouillet. A number of locations were chosen, identified here on our maps. This map shows our first two locations, at Lechley in the north and then at the west end of the yard at Trappes. We begin the programme just west of Ville-Preux-Lechley station as locomotive BB77300 number 324 restarts its train. These locos are dedicated to push-pull trains of double-deck stock and work out of Paris Montparnasse to Dreux and Mont-la-Jolie, as well as from Paris Saint-Lazare, again reaching out on the line to Mont-la-Jolie and beyond. The first 24 locos tend to work services out of Montparnasse. A total of 67 members of the fleet were built and delivered between 2006 and 2008. Here we see number 311 heading away from the camera. Number 318 is next to appear on a service for the capital. The locos are virtually identical to the more numerous BB27000 freight version, and apart from their livery, can be distinguished by the 6 cable sockets on the right hand side of the front end. 27306 approaches the camera with one of the numerous services seen along this line. We now move to the southern end of Trappes Yard, a facility long since reduced in importance, used now for stabling engineering trains and the odd long-distance freight. Other sidings are reserved for the storage of passenger stock, which is not needed outside of the peak rush hour periods and at weekends. Heading up one of the flyovers, where the tracks separate for the final run into the city, we see BB7200 locomotive number 7274, hauling a dead class 7600, which we assume must have failed earlier on in the day. This route is on the line to Rambouillet, one on which the class 7600s tend to dominate. The 7600s are dedicated class BB7200s, renumbered and fitted with push-pull operation for services on the line to Rambouillet and beyond in the peak periods. They were modernised for this operation in 2010, with 14 machines being so treated. Here we see number 7610, the X7332. Here we see a pair of Z8800 units. Z8835 is next to be seen working south to the station at La Verrière, where it will terminate. These train sets are dual voltage versions of the similar Z5600s, which also operate on some RER Line C services. They date from between 1986 and 1988 and have undergone a complete refurbishment over the years. A very much newer train set are the Z5500 Regio 2Ns, of which 14, belonging to the Val de Loire region, work trains from Paris-Montparnasse to Le Mans. Here we have unit numbers 625 and 613. Built by Bombardier, they were both accepted for traffic in the spring of 2016. Freight traffic is very light, with around one every 3 hours. Here is 37503 heading north with pressure tanks. Moving south, and we are on an overbridge not far from Les Essarts du Roi station. From here we will head south, looking at 2 more locations on the route down to Le Perret. 7614 arrives with an RER Line C stopping service from Rambouillet. The date is the 24th of May 2019. Just a few minutes later, and 7613 comes into view with a stopping service for Rambouillet. Z26500 units are also seen along this line. Here we have 26511 paired with 26571. They are working the 1506 from Paris to Le Mans. BB77305 was working one of the Class 7600 diagrams this day, and here it is seen arriving with a 1505 from Paris to Rambouillet. Number 7613 slows with a northbound service for the capital. A farm access bridge around a kilometre south affords this view of Z55500 units, numbers 55579 and 55523. The afternoon heat is all too evident as number 7614 leaves the station with an RER Line C stopping service.
just north of Perret station, and a pair of Z5500 units head north with a service from Le Mans. This was followed some 6 minutes later by the 1322 departure from Rambouillet, powered at the rear by BB77300. Number 7609 passes in the opposite direction. Photographic locations along this line are fairly limited. This one has been made possible by recent tree clearance. (7612) is the next to appear. We just managed to start the camera rolling in time to catch E4019, heading south on empty stone hoppers. Our final location comes from just south of Rambouillet. Our map shows the location visited. The first scene shows Class 26500 unit number 525, heading north with a semi-fast service from Le Mans to Paris. Finally, 55533 and 55589 head south into the evening sun, with the 1706 service from Paris to Le Mans on the 18th of September 2018. The border between Western Hungary and Croatia is our next stop, as we call in to a pair of locations right on the border between the two countries. Our maps here show our two chosen locations.
We begin at Győr in the south before moving north to the junction at Murakeresztúr. This line is part of the main route linking Budapest with Zagreb, and as such sees a handful of through passenger workings as well as freight traffic, the latter mainly to and from the port of Rijeka. The map here shows the locations chosen to the west of the station. This is Győr, and one of 10 pairs of cross-border trains leaves the station. Croatian Railways Class 1141, number 301, departs with the 1232 to Zagreb. Included are through coaches from Budapest, which would have left at 0715. The class were originally built for Yugoslavian railways between 1968 and 1987 by Swedish company ASEA, with many sub-assemblies supplied from factories in Romania. Based on the popular RC1 type, a total of 285 machines were built and were eventually divided up between countries when Yugoslavia was dissolved. This is the 0810 from Sopron to Pécs, with Class 418 number 301. This is one of 4 return services that work to and from Szombathely and Pécs, which operate through the station each day. The Class 480 seen here was originally operated by DB Cargo Hungary on hire from the manufacturer, but is now used by private freight operator MMV. The loco is part of a fleet built by Romanian company Softronic from 2010 onwards. With a 6,000 kilowatt output, this powerful locomotive can work off either the 25 kV or 15 kV overhead systems. This isn't a particularly busy spot for freight, but what there is can produce some very interesting motive power. If we were to hazard a guess, then around 1 freight every 2 hours would be typical. However, this could increase depending on the time of day. (651.002) leaves the yard with a northbound set of hoppers. This loco's life started back in 1978 with the Deutsche Reichsbahn as number 132543. It was renumbered to 232543 in 1992 before being withdrawn and stored in April 2008. A year later it went to Romania on hire. It was subsequently renumbered again to 651.002 whilst operating for DB Schenker Rail Romania. In August 2013 it was hired to Hungarian operator GSEV, which included numerous passenger and freight train workings in the north of the country, before returning to DB in Romania in 2016. A year later it moved back to DB Cargo in Hungary, before being hired out to its current freight operator Kárpát Vasút in early 2019.
193271 was delivered by Siemens to European Locomotive Leasing in August 2016. It went out on hire straight away to Echo Rail based out of Vienna, before being hired out to LTE Logistic a month later. It received accident damage in Budapest on the 17th of September 2016 and returned to service some 4 months later. It then had a brief spell on hire to Salzburger Lokalbahn until February before a 2-month hire to RTB Cargo, which ended in April 2017. From then onwards it had been on hire to its current operator, PPD Transport, based at Zagreb. We assume that the loco will take the grain hoppers brought in by the Class 480 earlier onwards to Zagreb, and maybe then on to the port of Rijeka. A few hundred metres away on the line up towards Mura-Karlsruhe, we get this view from a road crossing of 433268 on the 1146 to Kapelsvaar. The train has a through coach from Zagreb on the rear. (418-312) was just 10 minutes behind, with the 10:15 from Pécs to Szombathely. Finally, diesel railcar number 117277 is seen hauling a non-driving trailer on the 1216 Nagykonja to Pécs.
We now travel 6 kilometres to the north, to the junction at Mura-Kareztur, where a non-electrified line heads west into Croatia, and thus forms another border crossing. Our main spot is next to the goods shed at the station, as we see 433315 rounding the curve from the left with a train for Nagkonja. The line to the right, alongside the string of wagons, heads for Croatia. .48015 returns north with another set of grain hoppers. Locomotive number 48319 was next to appear on the 1309 from Zombatai to Pécs. Finally, just to the south, we get this view from a busy road crossing that leads to a quarry. Here, 433316 is on the 1455 from Nagkonja to Tombovar. It's off to Germany now, as we sample the first part of a look at the busy passenger line north of Nuremberg on the route up to Würzburg. Positioned in northern Bavaria, our maps here show the general location within Germany. The section of line covered is highlighted by the black line. In this, the first part of our feature, we will look at locations on the section between Bernfarnbach, just outside of Fürth, up to the outskirts of Neustadt an der Aisch. We begin at Bergfarnbach, before moving along to our second filming position at Puschendorf. We start just outside of the town, as Unit 440326 heads south with the 736 stopping service from Neustadt an der Aisch to Nuremberg. .648316 is just a couple of minutes behind,
with a service from Market Erlbach. Behind the train is the Bruder toy factory, famous for its plastic farm and construction models. The line sees around 2 to 3 freight trains each hour. This one is headed by 185539. South of Würzburg, the line splits, with one going to Nürnberg and the other towards the junction at Ansbach. This line, though, sees the least amount of freight traffic, but far more passenger trains, with local and long-distance intercity traffic dominating, as we shall see as we progress through this feature. (440.025) heads north with the semi-fast 0805 from Nürnberg to Neustadt. The line sees plenty of ICE activity, with many different types appearing. Here 402.018 and 022 head south. The marker post points to the 7-kilometre mark, measured from the station just to the south at Fürth. Class 411 unit number 078 heads towards the camera. (185509) has this set of tank wagons in tow as it follows some 20 minutes later. Moving north some 5 kilometres, we find ourselves at the country station at Puschendorf. 185431 appears on DGS 95186,
from Offenbach to Munksmünster. New ICE set number 9017 passes with the 0817 from München to Kiel. Class 440 units cover most of the stopping services on the line, with 2 each way per hour. 1 all stations and the other a semi-fast working. Here 440-326 approaches with the 943 from Neustadt to Nürnberg. We now move north to Hagen-Buchbach station, our third location along the route. Afterwards we will travel northwest to our next destination at Emskirchen. 185-286 rounds the curve on train EZ 44690 from Linz in Austria to Gremberg Yard in Köln. Mixed wagon freight services operate around every 2 hours in each direction to and from the yards at Nürnberg.
we have 403, 059 and 005. (440-317) is forming the 1053 stopper from Neustadt to Nuremberg. There is a great coffee and cake shop, seen here on the right of the picture as the train departs. EGP operate XDB Class 151, number 131. It approaches the station on a delayed DGS 52584 from Hamburg to Regensburg container train. The 440s used on this line come in 3 and 4 car formations. This is one of the early batch of 4 car units, number 025, seen on a semi-fast service for Würzburg. One more from Hagenbuchbach as 440, 304 and 307 scoot south. Five kilometres to the north and we are at the station at Emskirchen, which serves the local population close to 6,000 people. 440-326 departs for Nuremberg. 401073 heads north with a service for Frankfurt. Another ICE, this time 411027, and it is forming the 636 from Dortmund to München. Four ICE and 4 local services make up the passenger trains seen along this line each hour. As mentioned, ICE services operate along this line from Würzburg. North of there, they use the dedicated NBS line, which runs along the edge of the main river valley. Here we have 411007 and 001. As can be seen, this line is a good one for watching ICEs at work. Heading south is 403008. Not to be outdone are 402022 and 007, and they are next to appear heading north with the 1021 combined service from München to Bremen and Hamburg. We are off on our travels once again now, and to two locations just a couple of kilometres east of Neustadt an der Aisch. where the line climbs steeply through wooded areas and open countryside. Here we have unit number 440025, heading east with the 1241 from Würzburg to Nuremberg. The 4-car Class 440s are generally used on the Würzburg services, whilst the 3-car versions work the trains to and from Neustadt. This is the 1343 from Neustadt to Nuremberg. A Class 401 heads north. Finally, we end the first part of this feature with this Class 411 unit heading north on the approach to Neustadt Mitte station. Part 2 of our look at this line, including a very interesting train type, will feature in a future edition of European Railway. We conclude this programme with a trip back to France and to the station at Argenton-sur-Creuse on the main line from Paris to Limoges. The map here shows our location within the country. By mode, Class BB81500 unit, number 596, slows whilst forming the 649 from Vierzon to Limoges. Of interest are the miniature wings at the top of the pantograph, ensuring enough upward pressure is being made by the pantograph to the contact wire at higher speeds. In the opposite direction we see BB7600 electric locomotive number 16, at the head of the 0706 service from Limoges to Paris. As the train passes, we hope that you have enjoyed this edition of European Railway.